So you've just started posting amazing pictures on your Instagram and you're ready to step your game up by buying a brand new camera. The first thing you should not do is waste your money on a kit lens. Stick around and I'll tell you why.
This is going to be a comprehensive review. He said, my name's Shut up!
Pretty much all of my friends that have gone ahead and bought a new camera or a new digital camera are super excited about the fact that they bought one for the first month or so. Sooner or later the camera winds up going back onto the shelf and it just collects dust on the shelf. Now a big reason for this is most of the videos that you see out there on YouTube are professional photographers that are insisting that camera gear does not matter. Now before we go any further, I want to show you guys a few pictures. Now here's the catch. These pictures were taken from a kit lens. Okay, so at this point most of the photographers or most of the YouTube videos that you see out there say that camera gear does not matter, and they end the video and then you guys are super pumped up and you guys go ahead and just buy a camera and then just buy the kit lens that comes along with the camera. What the photographers don't really tell you is the 4 years that goes into learning how to take these pictures with a kit lens. It took me quite a long time to understand that if I stood in the middle of the road and if the dude in the picture also stood in the middle of the road, that the leading lines of the bridge would make this an absolutely dope picture. And the one thing that constantly got me through those 4 years is motivation. Now the biggest addiction there is, or the biggest factor that creates motivation, is success. And the reason I stuck at it for 4 years is because I didn't really listen to these photographers and I didn't go ahead and just buy a camera and the kit lens along with it. I just bought what they were using. For the most part of the first 2 years, I was taking amazing pictures. And I was extremely motivated because everybody kept telling me that I was taking amazing pictures, and pretty much 100% of the work was done by the camera. It's not because I had a God-given gift for photography, or it's not because I've had a skill, or that I've had this amazing superpower of taking decent pictures. It's because the camera was doing the work for me, because I went and bought what is called a prime lens. Now, I didn't really spend crazy money on the prime lens. I just bought a camera body, and instead of like buying the lens with it, I dropped the lens and I just bought a prime lens. The first lens that I actually bought was a 35mm f1.8 Nikon prime lens. Pretty much everybody nowadays are crazy about portraits and portrait modes on their smartphones, and what that essentially does is it just takes the subject out of the background and blurs it out. And prime lenses have been doing this since the beginning of time. It's called having a shallow depth of field. When people buy their camera for the first time and they start taking pictures with these kit lenses, and then it turns out being no different than the picture they're taking from their smartphones, they simply lose motivation and they just throw away their camera and just, I mean, why would you carry around a huge DSLR when you can just simply take pictures of your phones? And that is why you should not be buying a kit lens. You need that illusion of you taking amazing portraits with blurry backgrounds. I mean, simply every picture I took with that lens just turned out to be great because it was, you know, it had this vibe to it of blurred backgrounds. And that's the #1 reason why people give up on photography. They think their pictures are shit. Now let's go back to the picture that I showed you earlier. This is what it looks like straight out of the camera with absolutely no post-production. And this brings me to my second point. The photography industry is a very deceptive industry simply because there's a ton of post-production and retouching that's been done to pictures, and this is not something to be ashamed of, or it's not a bad thing. You still need a good foundation. You still need to click at the right time, or know when to click at the right time, and know about leading lines and composition and perspective of how to place your subjects or locations and how light would affect your pictures. you still need to know all of this to create a good foundation for you to work on back when you take it back into the studio or when you post-produce. If I was left with the initial picture that you guys are seeing right now, and if I had to post that online, and if that's all I had, I would be telling myself, why the hell am I even using this camera, because the pictures are really bad. It's because I put time and effort into learning Photoshop, and learning Lightroom is how I knew what to remove and what distraction, what distracts you from the picture, and how to edit colors and how to edit light. It was years and years of like working on things like that that made me realize that I can actually take some amazing pictures from the kit lens. My guesses are that the majority of you guys that are watching right now don't really have the time to spend on learning Photoshop or Lightroom. You guys have a job, you guys have bills to pay, you guys have responsibilities. If you're taking pictures from a camera and it's not really things that you can sell to clients or that you can make money in, it's not going to make sense for you to invest that time. So you don't really learn how to post-produce. And this is exactly why you need your camera or your equipment to do the work for you in the beginning, so that you don't get demotivated and you keep taking pictures and you keep learning about how do I make my pictures better. You start going into the realm of post-production and retouching. After 3 or 4 years of learning Photoshop and learning Lightroom and learning how to fake a shallow depth of field, for example in this picture that I took with my smartphone a couple of months back, you guys can take a look at what the picture initially looks like, and then once I imported it onto my computer and edited it and blurred out the background a bit, it's a pretty decent picture. Essentially this is what pro photographers are trying to teach you, that you don't need it, that you don't need an amazing camera, and you have to be properly passionate about wanting to learn it. And if you're not getting results, you're gonna give up. So again, I keep going back to the point where you need the camera to do most of the work for you, at least in the beginning, for you to reach a certain point in your skill level or in your knowledge to turn a picture you've taken from pretty much a smartphone or your digital camera to make it look amazing. Now the reason I'm going on and on about buying a good lens or like buying good equipment, up to a certain point where you can afford to, is because I've been using a point and shoot for almost 10 years, but as years went by, smartphones just kept getting better and better at taking pictures, so I stopped using this. And I didn't pick up a camera until 4 years ago, when I picked up my DSLR body and I switched to using prime lenses, and I carry my huge camera with its huge bag pretty much everywhere I go. So guys, I hope you learned something from this video. Definitely leave a comment if you have a different opinion on kit lenses for beginners. Also consider subscribing if you want more videos. Check out all my old videos that I have shot. I've got travel videos, I've got music videos, and all sorts of fun stuff on my channel. So yeah, I'll catch you guys later.